Hey, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's Julie Condliffe here on the Compliant Landlord Series. Today we discuss a very painful matter. It's a heartbreaking issue about a landlord who's about to lose her home. We want to help her, but we also want to determine who is to blame for this. Could it be the letting agent? Could it be the tenant? Or could it actually be the actual landlord? I need your help in determining how to apportion responsibility for this. So the backdrop of the story is the property is based right in the heart of London. The landlord is Jenny. Jenny is a 35-year-old nurse who has been very busy saving lives. She's had to take on a lot more shifts due to the increasing amount of coronavirus victims. As a single parent, she has struggled with juggling childcare, work commitments, and being a landlord. Luckily, she had a local letting agent help with the letting of the property. The monthly rental income at this property is $2,500. The deposit that the tenant paid is $2,500. The tenant is now suing our lovely nurse Jenny for £10,000 in respect of the legalities surrounding the tenancy deposit protection. The landlord says the letting agent is responsible. The letting agent denies culpability. The tenant apportions liability to the landlord. We all know that where there's a claim, there is blame. This goes beyond the blame game though. This is somebody's livelihood at stake. Someone's inheritance is on the line. And the bottom line is, Jenny doesn't have that sort of money. This would break her. She would be broke. As a single parent, she's already struggling to make ends meet. £10,000 plus all the legal costs of fighting this claim could be the death knell to her property investment dreams. This is not the kind of stress she needs right now. This is not the kind of stress she anticipated. She already has a high interest rate mortgage on the property due to the adverse credit history that she's got. She pays $2,400 per month to her lender for an interest-only mortgage. She pays the building's insurance. She pays the loan she took out for the property purchase deposits. There is not enough meat on the bones, hardly any meat at all. Then again, maybe she's a vegetarian. In all seriousness though, she attended a property investment training course. She then bought into the prospect of the potential capital appreciation of London properties. London being the capital centre of investments, the capital city of the United Kingdom. So everything was good at the time. But remember, this was pre-COVID, so the property outlook was totally different at the material time. Things were bad before, but they're just about to get worse. The tenant is taking legal action against Jenny for failure to provide the prescribed information. Jenny is already in financial dire straits and she's on the verge of losing her home. She's on the verge of losing her mind. She's on the verge of losing everything that mattered to her so much. Well, it seems that way. So who's to blame here? Who's going to take responsibility for this? Is it the letting agent? Is it the tenant? Or should Jenny take some responsibility? This is where I need your help. But before you get involved, I think it would be good for you to understand the facts of the matter. So on the 1st of February 2020, that's when the tenancy commenced. The tenant paid a deposit in the sum of $2,500. We've already established that. The tenancy has now ended. So the tenant wants the return of the deposit, that's the 2,500, and the tenant is also making a claim of up to 3 times the deposit. So that's 7,500 for failure to provide the prescribed information. So 7,500 plus the 2,500 deposit equals the 10,000 that she now needs to pay the tenant, and she doesn't have that money. So Jenny, as the landlord says, she assumed the letting agents had complied with the tenancy deposit protection regulations. She trusted them with this service. She had no reason to think otherwise. Then you've got the letting agents on the other hand. They say they complied with the deposit protection regulations. They say they protected the deposit within the 30-day period. They also say they provided the prescribed information within the requisite 30-day period. What does the tenant say? Well, the tenant says he did not receive the prescribed information. So we've got 3 scenarios here. The landlord trusted the agents, thought the agents were going to do what it is they're contracted to do. The letting agents say they executed their job correctly. They provided the prescribed information. They protected the deposit within the requisite period, which is 30 days from the date of receipt. But we've got a tenant here who is saying that he never received the documentation and now he's taking legal action against Jenny. So what do you think? Because this is really going to be based on a finding of fact, but I suppose before you arrive at whatever judgment, whatever decision you arrive at, perhaps we should take time to consider the law. What does the law say in this set of circumstances? So the law is quite clear. The law requires the landlords to safeguard the tenants' deposits. This applies only to assured short-hold tenancies that started after the 6th of April 2007. I must pause here to highlight the fact that if you are a landlord doing creative deals such as your lease options and your rent-to-rent, if you've taken on a lease option from a superior landlord and you are now letting out part or the whole property under assured short-hold tenancies, this will also apply to you. So if you're letting out even a single rooms, as you do with most rent-to-rent HMOs, if you're doing that and giving out assured short-hold tenancies, then you are considered as a landlord for these purposes. So you must also protect the tenant's deposit by utilizing one of these 3 government-backed tenancy deposit schemes. Okay, so in England and Wales, the deposit can be registered with Deposit Protection Service, My Deposits, and the Tenancy Deposit Scheme. The choice really is yours. I will do a separate video where I delve into a lot more detail of the differences between the 3, and I'll probably share my preference. So that's that. There are separate tenancy deposit schemes in Scotland and in Northern Ireland. Now, the legal requirements in relation to deposit protection are twofold. So the first is, as a landlord, you're required to protect the deposit within 30 days of receipt. Point number 2 is, as a landlord, you are required to provide a tenant and all the relevant people with the prescribed information within 30 days of receipt of the deposit. So protect and provide. Protect the deposit, provide the prescribed information. Both are equally important. Now, the prescribed information provides tenants with quite a lot of information, such as the address of the rented property, the amount of the deposit paid, how the deposit is protected, the name and contact details of the tenancy deposit scheme and its dispute resolution service, the landlord or letting agent and their contact details, the name and contact details of any third party that's paid the deposit. So it could be somebody's mother, their brother, or whoever it is that's paid the deposit. Their details will be thereon. It also provides information as to why their deposit could be withheld, how to apply to get the deposit back, what to do if you can't get hold of that landlord at tenancy end, and also how to handle disputes. So that's that. The primary points there are the two: provide and protect. Protect the deposit and provide the prescribed information. That's that. So now that you know what the legal requirements are, going back to the facts, what is your position? Who do you say should take responsibility here? Do you say it is the landlord because it's actually the landlord's property, so the landlord will have responsibility whichever way you look at it? Or do we say that because the landlord trusted the letting agents, who are professionals in this field, so perhaps the letting agents should be responsible for this? Or do you say that the tenant potentially is maybe telling porkies? I don't know. It's your decision, but I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what your thought process is in this regard. My recommendations, though, are as follows. As a landlord, never assume. Always obtain written confirmation from your agents that they're dealing with the deposit protection. Most agents have this information in their standard documentation, but check. Remember, the devil is in the detail. As a letting agent, or indeed a landlord protecting their own deposit, please ensure that you have evidence to support your contention. If you say you send the prescribed information, retain proof of service in the form of recorded delivery or perhaps a post office proof of postage. Prove it. Whatever you do, prove it. It's all about evidence. And you've got the responsibility to exhibit that evidence. So if you don't have the evidence, it's your word against a third party. Therein lies the difficulty. So, letting agents can be successfully sued for failure to comply with the deposit protection rules. Nobody is above the law. So, letting agents, be warned. Forewarned is forearmed, and it's really just to help you out. And this is not just for letting agents, it is also for landlords. Everybody who's involved in the property game ought to be aware of the responsibility, of the culpability, of the liability in this regard. So what is your judgment? You decide. If you were the judge in this case, who would you believe? The letting agent or the tenant? Who would you hold liable? The landlord or the letting agent? Who should pay the money claimed? Who should pay the $7,500? The $2,500, I think that's easy. Perhaps the landlord should just return that because it is the tenant's money, unless if there are any issues in relation to the property. But $7,500, who do you say should pay that back? Thanks for joining me, and see you again next time.